Hello! This presentation is on Latino identity development and is based on research by Dustin Caravaglia, Jamie Doliani, Sarah Fillman, and Jody Tadlock. The theory for this project focuses on the challenges faced by the Latino culture as a minority group in the U.S. and how it can affect their identity development. We organized our research using the FMMI, or Factor Model of Multiracial Identity. This model breaks down the social political factors to include racial ancestry, physical appearance, social and historical context, spirituality, political awareness and orientation, early experience and socialization, and cultural attachment. It's important to understand terminology such as words like race, Hispanic, Latino, and Latina. We also found a strong historical influence in our research, which is provided as an underlying theme. These are challenges from our research broken into categories based on the FMMI model: physical appearance, political, ancestry and spirituality, and historical and cultural challenges. Now we move on to the historical background of Latino cultural identity. The label Latino is claimed by more than 20 countries and describes cultural ties to their heritage. Latinos share a colonial history that brought the Spanish language and other cultural traits. Two major historical influences on Latino challenges include land boundaries and immigration. Much of the western United States was once Mexico. Some people of Mexican descent in the Southwest and West have been on U.S. soil for many generations. They faced oppression in their ability to express their culture and maintain their land rights and inevitably their Latino cultural identity. Different countries have had different immigration status, making immigration easier or harder depending on which country one originates in. Economic and political issues in other countries made it more difficult for those individuals to migrate to the United States. Nearly 40 million immigrants have come to the United States since 1965. About half are from Latin America. These factors influence the societal and historical context of Latinos in the United States and have to be acknowledged before attempting to understand the identity development of Latinos in the United States. The historical context of cultural attachments are largely focused on family, language, and traditions. The Latino culture holds family in high regard, and historically the family is structured with the male patriarch as head of household, and women are strongly revered. Historically, there is a very positive ethnic identity among Latinos. Skin color discrimination starts very early on in the history of the Latino culture. Due to Western colonial settlers, Latinos with lighter skin are held in higher status in society, while lower status Latinos had darker skin. There was a push in European populations to maintain racial purity, and therefore segregation created a subordinate label. Moving on to more recent times, Hispanics are the fastest growing population in the United States. In 2013, about 1 in 7 people were Hispanic. It's interesting to see the trends for Latinos in higher education. The small percentage of Latinos earning their degrees can be attributed to a number of factors. However, these numbers are growing. In a report for USA Today in 2011, Greg Topo found that since the year 2000, nearly 50% more Latinos enrolled in 2- or 4-year educational institutions. There are several possible contributions to this increase. The first is that more first-generation Latinos feel more attached with increased feelings of belonging than previous generations. Second, there are more scholarship opportunities for Latinos as cultural diversity has developed into a topic of conversation in society over the years, and more financial aid opportunities exist for minorities. Using the FMMI model, then it could be more persons are identifying themselves as Latino in order to qualify for newly presented monetary awards. Unlike their ancestors, it is more acceptable and beneficial for Latinos today to identify themselves as multiracial. In the year 2000, the U.S. Census forms were changed to allow persons to select more than one box to indicate their race, thus eliminating the one-drop method of racial identity. Since that time, other institutions have followed suit. Third, the poor economy nationwide is another possible contributor to more Latinos entering higher education. With not as many available jobs for high school students after graduation, higher education is more appealing. Finally, there is more accountability for youth in education. Measures such as President Bush's No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, which sought to increase test scores as well as increase graduation rates among high school students. Latino acculturation. This essentially means Latinos becoming more American by adapting or borrowing the traits of the American culture. The culture of origin involvement, familialism, and biculturalism are not as important as maintaining ties to one's ethnic culture while learning to navigate within the host culture. There is negativity associated with Latino acculturation due to how they are received by the dominant group. In the United States, Latino families are met with a variety of welcoming or stigmatizing socio-political environments that are dependent on where a family lives. Additionally, adolescents are turning away from their cultures of origin as they integrate into the host culture, and parents are resisting this change. How Latinos identify is an important part of their personal challenges. 51% identify with their family's country of origin. 69% say that Latinos in the U.S. are comprised of many different cultures rather than one common culture. 47% consider themselves to be very different from the majority American culture. 21% use American to describe their identity. Additionally, 82% of Latino adults speak Spanish and express a strong shared connection to the language. 95% say that it is important for future generations to continue to do so. In a recent study on Hispanic trends, Latinos of various backgrounds were asked how they identify themselves. The overall trend was the further generations they were away from their ancestral roots, the less they identified with them and more as American. Among foreign-born Latinos, they mostly identified with their ancestral country, and some as Latino Hispanic. Very few identified as American. By the time Latinos are third generation or higher, they are more likely to identify as American and much less as Hispanic Latino or their ancestral countries. Many factors play into how Latino youth identify with their racial ancestry. The environment they are raised in plays a large part. If they are raised in a diverse environment with many cultures present, they will not only identify more with their racial ancestry and have a stronger sense of self, they will also celebrate diversity. The effects of physical appearance often forces Latinos to identify with a homogeneous Spanish racial system that can be distant to their cultural norms. Categorizing Latinos based on skin color does not properly address their ethnic identities or how they see themselves in society. According to the 2010 U.S. Census Bureau, the U.S. has the third largest Hispanic origin population in the world. What accounts for this huge increase in the population? Two factors: more persons of Latino descent are being born in the United States, or also called first generations. Another is that immigration to the U.S. continues at a steady rate. Historically, Latinos live in segregated, low-income neighborhoods and live in multi-generational households. Latinos have a strong sense of culture, and even today, 52% of immigrants living in the U.S. send money to relatives in their native country on a monthly basis. These are examples of social changes. Another challenge Latinos face involves racial stereotyping. The historical influence is the maintenance of power of dominant white groups. Some examples of popular false Latino stereotypes include that Latinos are all recent immigrants to the United States, that most immigrants come from Mexico, that Hispanics all speak Spanish and have the same ethnic traits, that the general perception of Latinos is they have dark brown hair and eyes and tan or olive skin. Latino voting has increased noticeably since the year 2000. One reason is that first-generation Latinos are becoming of age to vote. Hispanic millennials, which is defined as persons 18 to 35, will account for almost one-half of the 27.3 million Latino eligible voters based on projection for the upcoming 2016 presidential election. Characteristics of Latino beliefs. Catholicism is the main religion practiced by Latinos, with over 19.6 million practicing Catholics. 77% of Latinos are raised Catholic, making up 33% of the Catholic population in the United States. 45% of Latinos under the age of 30 identify as Catholic. There is a shift in the Latino community to Protestant evangelical religions, or to have no religious affiliation at all. Nearly 22% of Latinos are not Protestant, leaning more toward evangelical beliefs. Latinos practicing these religions report high levels of involvement in the church, including attending Bible study. Many have felt that these communities have been more helpful during times of personal crisis and more welcoming toward new members in the community. A growing number of young Latinos, 18 to 29, are choosing no religious affiliation, especially those that have attended college. They cite simply stopping believing in the religious doctrines. Though religious attendance is not always high in the Latino culture, often they will worship at home with their families or in their smaller communities. Latino college students have a high rate of religious service attendance, some attending service every day. Latinos have a higher rate of personal prayer and reflection than non-Latinos. They also have a strong identification with religious figures, especially Our Lady of Guadalupe, the Virgin Mary, and will display memorabilia such as the cross in their home. Family and community ties are very strong within their belief system. The more a student identifies with their Latino culture and the family participates in cultural activities, the more religious they tend to be. Again, Catholicism is the main religion practiced by Latinos, with over 19.6 million practicing Catholics. As Latino youths assimilate more into American culture, the more they struggle with their ancestral beliefs. Catholicism, as practiced by Latinos, especially Mexicans, has roots in medieval Catholicism mixed with religions and cultures of the native people during the time the Spanish colonized Latin America. Typically, Catholicism practiced in the U.S. has roots in European Roman Catholic traditions. Churches celebrating Mass in Spanish will focus on traditions of Latin American Catholicism. However, with a growing number Latino youth speaking mostly English, they do not understand Mass celebrated in Spanish. They will often seek out other Catholic churches based on European traditions. They often find these Masses too different from their traditions and do not feel as much of a connection. This can lead to many Latino youth disassociating with religious beliefs altogether. In conclusion, here's an overview of the challenges that Latinos face. Latinos struggle to maintain a strong ethnic identity. Assimilating into a new society, Latinos feel pressure of family in their home country, pressures to provide, become successful, maintain religious beliefs, utilize the opportunities they have at their disposal, make their family proud, all while upholding the same values, even in a new society as an immigrant. Latinos assimilating into a new culture have a major learning curve when it comes to understanding a new culture, or rather the melting pot of different cultures, new language, different environment, new technologies that are rapidly changing, different resources and opportunities, and a different government and politics. Challenges in the higher education environment, social challenges, and challenges that any new student is faced with. Latinos may feel a struggle with how to identify as a minority culture, to surround themselves with others who are Latino, maintain cultural traditions, religious beliefs, or oppositely, try to change their identity to fit the mold of the new majority culture as described by acculturation. Latinos struggle with being treated as a stereotype, encountering discrimination and racism, carrying the feeling that people assume things about them based on their appearance. Discrimination can be a reality for any minority and a major challenge, especially in a campus environment. Colleges and universities who have support system in place for Latino students can give them a greater chance of success. Here are a few examples of successful Latino programs in higher education, taken from various colleges in the United States. That concludes our presentation on Latino identity development. Thank you very much.